This is an artifact that may very well support the existence of King Zedekiah's son, who the Bible says was executed in the siege of Babylon. But what if he managed to survive? Clues from the text of the Bible, evidence from archaeology, and a narrative from the Book of Mormon suggest that one of Zedekiah's sons did in fact escape, and his name was Mulek. To understand why this particular artifact is so significant for the narrative of both the Bible and the Book of Mormon, we need to lay some historical groundwork. So when Babylon destroyed Jerusalem in 586 BC, Jerusalem's king Zedekiah had to endure a fate worse than death. To punish him for rebellion and allying with Egypt, the Babylonians took Zedekiah's children and killed them all right in front of him. And then they blinded Zedekiah so that horrifying image would be the last thing he ever saw. After this, he was taken captive to Babylon, where he lived out the rest of his miserable days. And in the Bible, that's where the story ends for Zedekiah's family and his dynastic line. But according to the Book of Mormon, one son named Mulek escaped the siege of Babylon, traveled to the New World, presumably with a group of other loyal Israelites, and established a new home there. His descendants eventually merged with another group of Israelite refugees called the Nephites, and they flourished into a thriving civilization before being destroyed hundreds of years later by their enemies, the Lamanites. Now, this mysterious Prince Mulek is hard to trace because the Bible never specifies the names of Zedekiah's sons. In the book of 2 Kings, it simply states that the Babylonians slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. But a careful reading reveals that one of Zedekiah's sons may appear in the book of Jeremiah, and he could be linked to Mulek. It states that the prophet Jeremiah was cast into the dungeon of Malchiah, the son of Hamelech. Now, clearly, the name Malchiah is not the name Mulek, and the name Hamelech is not the name Zedekiah. Or is it? Although it's not clear from the King James Version of the Bible, Hamelech is probably not a name, but rather a title. In Hebrew, it means the king. So this might more accurately be rendered as Malchiah, the son of the king. And this nuance is reflected in a number of modern Bible translations, which describes Malchiah as the king's son, rather than the son of Hamelech. In addition, because Zedekiah is the only king mentioned by name in Jeremiah 38, some non-Latter-day Saint scholars have concluded that the title Hamelech, the king, most likely does refer to Zedekiah himself, and therefore that Malchiah was indeed his son. Now let's address how Mulek fits into all of this. Some Latter-day Saint scholars have proposed that the name Mulek may be a shortened form of the name Malchiah, sort of how Mike is a shortened version of Michael in English. And precedent for this shortening and nicknaming can be seen in biblical names such as Baruch, which is a short form of Berechiah. And in the case of Malchiah, it's been suggested that that suffix, the ayah at the end, may have been dropped off, leaving only the consonants M, L, K. Because only consonants and not vowels were written out in ancient Hebrew, the shortened version of Malchiah would reasonably share the same spelling, M-L-K, as Mulek. It logically follows then that the Mulek described as Zedekiah's son in the Book of Mormon could very well be one and the same individual as Malchiah, the son of the king from the Bible. And this just keeps getting more interesting because archaeologists may have discovered an artifact in Jerusalem that belongs to this very Mulek. A small clay stamp seal bearing the name Malkiyahu ben Hamelech was discovered in Jerusalem in the 1980s, and some non-Latter-day Saint scholars have connected this artifact with the Malchiah from the Bible. This stamp seal dates to the 7th to early 6th centuries BC. It's made out of a bluish-green malachite and is smaller than a dime. Now, Malkiyahu, that name is simply a variant English spelling of the name Malchiah, which shows up in the Bible. And Ben Hamelech, as we've already talked about, means son of the king. So although it can't be definitively proven, there's a legitimate correspondence between Mulek in the Book of Mormon, Malchiah in the Book of Jeremiah, and this stamp seal discovered in Jerusalem. In the opinion of archaeologist Jeffrey Chadwick, it is quite possible that an archaeological artifact of a Book of Mormon personality has been identified. It appears that the seal of Mulek has been found. We don't know how old Mulek would have been when he fled Jerusalem or how he evaded the same fate as his brothers, but the possibility that a royal prince of Judah escaped execution is tantalizing, and the archaeological evidence for his existence in the Bible and the Book of Mormon I find really exciting. It's important to understand that Latter-day Saints believe the Book of Mormon is an ancient religious text that was miraculously translated into English by a young man named Joseph Smith. Because Smith didn't have any formal background or training in the Hebrew language, it's hard to imagine how he would have ever derived Mulek from Malchiah or connected King Zedekiah with the term Hamelech, as rendered in the KJV. And certainly, Smith would not have known that a stamp seal bearing the name Malkiyahu ben Hamelech would turn up more than 150 years later, adding more archaeological support. Interestingly, Latter-day Saints aren't the only ones who have been impressed by this connection. When the renowned biblical scholar David Noel Freeman learned of it, he reportedly exclaimed, "If Joseph Smith came up with this one, he did pretty good."